welcome back to the Boropolis Podcast. As always, I am joined with Nathan, and not as always, we actually have two wins to talk about this week. You can probably tell from the grin on both of our faces already. We've been looking forward to this since full time against Norwich. Nathan, usually I ask you how you're feeling, subtracting any emotions that the football may have gave you, but I guess it would be silly for me to do that this week because you're probably on cloud nine because of the footy as well.
Yeah, cloud nine because of the footy, as you say, Chris. 2 away wins in a week, 6 points in the back pocket for Boro on the road, and it's got me over the moon really with football. I'm kind of gutted that the break has come when it has, but I suppose it does end club football for a month on a massive high as well. So there is always that.
Yeah, it certainly does. The World Cup around the corner now, but I mean, for this hour at least, we won't be talking about England. We'll be talking about a team that actually has played over the past week like quite a famous international team. And of course, I am talking about Michael Carrick's team performing like a prime Brazil. Let's get started with the action, Nathan. Blackpool away was first up this week, obviously. Bloomfield Road, of course, the rescheduled game following the passing of the Queen. We talked last week about how you were going to be in attendance, and I think you'll struggle to be in attendance for a better performance anytime soon, to be honest, from any club in the country, never mind just Middlesbrough.
Yeah, we were outstanding on Tuesday night, and my day was fantastic from start to finish. Blackpool away always is, getting down there by the seaside, having a walk along the promenade, and watching Boro take 3 points. It's quite a happy hunting ground for us in the last few years. But yeah, into the game, Middlesbrough unchanged. Again, a regular fixture from Michael Carrick's tenure so far, an unchanged Middlesbrough side, and started the game pretty well. Dominated the ball away from home, and you could see how the game was going to go. Blackpool were playing almost like an away side, although they were playing at home, sat behind the ball, and were looking to hit Boro on the break when they could. But that didn't happen all too much at all. Boro were outstanding from pretty much start to finish, and got quite an early goal as well through Isaiah Jones. The goal comes from back to front. Stefan starts it, and it ends with Jones putting it in the back of the Blackpool net. Up the other end, Hayden Hackney plays it into Tubes. Tubes turns. There's a good run from Jones that drags the defender away. Tubes drives up the line. Tommy Smith, another one, drags Theo Corbianu away, and Tubes puts an unbelievable ball into the box onto the head of Force. Force does really well, showing great awareness to nod the ball back across goal, and there's Jones to sweep it in 1-0, and it set the tone. Boro were fantastic from then on, and Blackpool didn't offer a whole lot at all.
Yeah, as you say, summed up well there. But before we actually do talk about the goal, Nathan, are we going to acknowledge that you've just slipped in Tube's nickname?
Big Tubes.
Is that what we're going to go with moving forward?
Big Tubes. Been going with Tubes for a while now. Maybe off this podcast, but yeah, Big Tubes. I love Big Tubes so much. He's rapidly becoming my favourite Middlesbrough player this season.
Yeah, I think he's probably just about coming out everyone else's favourite player as well. Of course, the Tuba train movement continues to go from strength to strength, and following full time. We actually had to add carriages to that service because of the popularity of it. So, it really is getting to the stage where the capacity's becoming a little bit of a concern, to be honest, on that train.
It is. It's a joke, really, especially under Michael Carrick. The train has stopped so far at Preston, at the Riverside, at Hull, and also, as we'll get into later in the podcast, at Blackpool North as well. So the train just keeps rolling on.
Yeah, it certainly does. And of course, the train is normally in reference to a Chuba Akpom goal, of course, which he did get at Blackpool, as you say. But I mean that pass, yeah, I think you said, a ball into the box. It was more the delicate pass of an NFL quarterback, to be honest. He's not only finding the back of the net, he is actually orchestrating things from wherever he wants on the pitch. His form is as good of a spell of form I can remember, probably since Bamford hit that purple patch under Tony Pulis. I don't think I'm really missing any strikers out because we've just failed to have any prolific strikers or any strikers that have really worked out at all, to be honest, over the last few years. But yeah, he's been incredible, and that quarterback-esque pass from him was a joy to watch. Actually, after scoring, Nathan, I thought that we let Blackpool grow into the game a little bit, and Carrick also said that following the game that, I'm not talking about Blackpool really piling on the pressure and making us not look completely in control, but they certainly sort of were woken up by obviously our opening goal, and the fact that they were able actually to keep it at 1-0 going into half-time was, I guess, from a Blackpool perspective, somewhat of a positive, to be honest.
Yeah, it will have been, especially with other chances that Middlesbrough had. There was a Ryan Giles free kick that took a few deflections and ended up going behind for a Blackpool goal kick. And also a Ryan Giles corner that was flicked towards the back post by Darragh Lenihan that looked like it was going to sneak in the far corner, but narrowly went wide. So to go in at 1-0, from a Middlesbrough perspective, it sort of felt a bit disappointing, really, because you always run the risk of Blackpool having a lucky goal that goes in and it changes the game completely. But yeah, Middlesbrough on top in that first half, unlucky not to go in with a healthier lead. But yeah, Blackpool will have maybe felt that they could have got back into the game following half time, but that was quickly stripped away from them, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, it certainly was, and it's certainly a talking point, the second goal, isn't it? Obviously you were in attendance, I was watching on at home, and my view was it was probably a soft penalty on Marcus Forss, of course. What was your view on it from the away end?
Yeah, if I'm honest, I did turn and say that it was a dive. I thought he's sort of made a bit of a meal out of it, did Marcus Forss, but he did extremely well to anticipate Marvin Ekpiteta's awful touch and his pace to get him behind, get on the end of that loose ball and flick it beyond Chris Maxwell was really good. But I think Maxwell, if Force doesn't jump the tackle, I think there is going to be contact made. So in that case, probably is a penalty, but a little bit soft. But from a Middlesbrough perspective, who cares? It took the game away from Blackpool, didn't it? Getting that penalty so early on in the second half. And in fairness, I thought it was going to cause possibly a little bit of panic when Chuba and Force stood next to the penalty spot, Force holding onto the ball, although Chuba seems to be the designated penalty taker. But Chuba let Force have it, and he just blasted the ball in the back of the net, didn't he? And from then on, it was very, very, very comfortable.
Yeah, now, I mean, we've been watching Middlesbrough long enough, not even as long as what some people listening or watching might have. And we both know that even when you go 2 goals up as a Middlesbrough fan, nothing's certain. Um, but as you say, this was a rare occasion where I felt as soon as we get that second, the referee could blow for full time, because I just never felt Blackpool were getting back into it. And yeah, as you say, Brave are forced to take the ball off Akpom, given he's, I guess, seemingly the normal penalty taker. We haven't had all too many, but Akpom obviously took the one away at Wigan as well and scored that. But yeah, good for his confidence. I think Akpom said that he was, part of his sort of decision to allow him to take it was the fact that Force, put an awful lot of work in without too much reward in recent weeks. And of course, he got that reward finally, blasting that penalty into the back of the net, low and hard. It was, emphatic, that penalty. And as I say, and as you've said, that wrapped up the game, to be honest. Anything that happened after that point was always going to be a bonus for Middlesbrough, really. And there was a few bonuses, and obviously the main one being the continuation and another stop for the Tuba train.
Yeah, it was. And again, that midfield two of Hackney and Howson, fantastic. I think in this case it was Johnny Howson wins the ball back, knocks it into midfield, and it ends up at Riley McGree's feet, knocks it out wide to Ryan Giles, who's marauded forward from left back, and he just fires that ball across the face of goal, and Tuba's there. And just from an aesthetic point of view, I think the only thing that stopped it being one of the most aesthetically pleasing away goals I've seen this season was the fact that it doesn't really hit the back of the net. It goes under Chris Maxwell and sort of p-rolls into the net. But yeah, 3-0, Tuba wheels away. Emotional in his celebrations as well. I think in his post-match interview, he did explain that was because he can't believe the way that the season's really going for him at this moment in time. 8 for the season now for Tuba, and he's Middlesbrough's main man, isn't he, in that number 10 position. Up until Blackpool, he'd scored in every single game under Michael Carrick, and yeah, he's been absolutely outstanding this season. A really big shining light in this Middlesbrough team, and yeah, the goal was thoroughly deserved for Tuba on the night in his performance, but also the team as a whole. And I mean, they could have continued and got a few more with a couple of chances that they did have. Pharrell Willis is a name that I think we should mention, making his debut for Middlesbrough off the bench on Tuesday night at Blackpool, and then earning a first professional contract at the club as well in the week. He did have a chance at Blackpool that was narrowly wide, but yeah, I thought it was a really, really good away day display. And I think what sums it up best is in the 60th minute when Tuba puts that one away, maybe 65, I think it was, the ground just emptied. And I think that you've performed really well when the home crowd start to disperse as early as they did. And yeah, credit to Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough for that display on Tuesday night. 3 massive points, especially in terms of the league table as well. Blackpool were above Middlesbrough at the start of play on Tuesday night, and it clawed Middlesbrough up the table and kept us plugging away.
Yeah, it certainly did. And I mean, we've spoken about the goals, but just the performance in general, it was assured, composed, just everything you would want, really, and everything that we sort of almost forgot that the players that played in that game were actually capable of. I mean, I know after the Preston game, and okay, yes, that was Michael Carrick's first game, but after the Coventry game, albeit under a different manager, and a few other performances this year, it sort of just felt like, you know, it was going to be a season wasted. We'd gone backwards. We you know, it just felt like such a huge task to get back to that sort of similar point to where we were under Chris Wilder last year. You know, around about the same time in the season, actually, where the new manager arrived and we had that, you know, burst of energy, burst of fresh ideas, and a good run of form to go alongside that. And, you know, obviously we'll talk about the Norwich game as well, but given the second half performance against Bristol City and all the positives to take from that, you know, it would have been quite easy for the team to, you know, potentially get their heads down and, you know, sulk a little bit that it didn't go our way against Bristol City, but actually they done the best thing they possibly could and continued the way they were playing from minute one. And I mean, it was a phenomenal performance. The only negative from me was that I couldn't be in attendance, because I think it would be fair to say that that's got to be performance of the season. Would you agree?
It was up there, certainly. To go away from home and boss a team on their own home ground is it's really good. And as an away fan, that's probably the best feeling in the world that you can have as an away fan. But yeah, the performance was fully warranting 3 points, and it got what it deserved. The away following as well, very good, especially considering it was on a Tuesday night, especially considering it was a game that was rearranged as well, where people thought it was going to be on a Saturday, and we still took over 3,000 on a Tuesday night, which is outstanding, really. And those 3,000 fans that did travel had a really good trip home as well, with 3 points in the back pocket.
Yeah, it was fantastic. You know, the performance and the atmosphere to match it. Yeah, it was as good of a night, I guess, as everyone could have hoped. I mean, I know in the last podcast we said last season's Blackpool away game would take some topping, and yes, it was slightly different in that it didn't take us until the final seconds to get the result. But yeah, the performance was certainly a lot better than that. And yeah, as you say, the result reflected that. So that was the first 3 points of the week. On to the second. Nathan, we followed that wonderful Blackpool result up with, you know, albeit a slightly different performance, but very much just as good of 3 points. And, you know, there's not really any better feelings in football supporting your team as a last gasp winner. And the first of the Michael Carrick era, 3 points on the road at Carrow Road. And I mean, I think most people would have taken a goal, but to come away with 3 points and 2 goals, yeah.
Yeah, truly fantastic on Saturday afternoon. I did travel to Norwich as well, and going there with not a lot of expectation, really, and that isn't built upon what I've seen from Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough. That is built upon Carrow Road and Middlesbrough's past visits there. For those that don't know the exact fact, before Saturday we hadn't scored a goal against Norwich since we beat them 1-0 away in the playoff season, where Albert Adoma scored at Carrow Road, which, I mean, we've played them 6, 7, 8 times since then in the playoff final as well, and hadn't even scored a goal, which, Yeah, it's not the best record in the world. And for any travelling fan going to Carrow Road, people must think that you're mad for going there, especially with that record. But over 1,500 Boro fans travelled to Carrow Road on Saturday afternoon in the hope of Middlesbrough scoring a goal and hopefully getting a positive result at Norwich, who are a strange side, really. I was going to say high-flying Norwich, which they are in the playoffs and towards the upper echelons of the Championship table. But the fans of Norwich will tell you that things aren't too well at the football club at this moment in time, with the fan base a bit divided on Dean Smith, his football, and his future at the football club as well. But it seemed as though the trend of Boro's form at Carrow Road was going to continue with an early goal from Josh Sargent. Moments before, Timu Pukki had a fantastic chance to make it 1-0 that was brilliantly saved by Stefan. His feet flicking that ball away from the far corner. But yeah, we go 1-0 down after 10 minutes. Giles is quite high up the pitch and loses a 50-50 battle in midfield. Norwich break forward. McLean gets hold of a loose ball, flicks it through to Sargent, and he sweeps home under Stefan into the far corner. And from the away end, it just felt like this could be a horrible, horrible afternoon, especially with that bloody goal music as well. But yeah, from everything that I've seen from journalists from Middlesbrough's side and from Norwich's side, it seems to be along the lines of Norwich were outstanding in that first half, and they battered Middlesbrough, and Middlesbrough were lucky to stay in the game. I'm not too sure if I'm of that belief. I thought that Norwich were okay in the first half, had a few chances, as they probably should, being a side that have come down from the Premier League and have a lot of options up front that are top options in the Championship. Pukki, Sargent, Aaron Ramsey in there as well. But I can't really remember too many chances apart from that Pukki one early on that threatened Zach Steffen. There was a shot from Ramsey that was saved and parried away, but nothing too much in that first half of note from Norwich in terms of chances apart from the goal. They defended resolutely in the first half and kept Middlesbrough out, but I'm not really of the belief that Norwich were outstanding in that first half. I felt that Middlesbrough were comfortably in the game and weren't put under sustained periods of pressure by Norwich. But I'd be interested to hear your take on that, Chris, having watched the first half yourself.
Yes, from watching the first half performance, I completely agree with you, Nathan, in that I felt the analysis on some shows and from some pundits was baffling, to be honest. I really didn't see the patterns of play which they seem to have imagined from Norwich in the first half. I've got to be honest, I wasn't really impressed by Norwich at all. I thought their league position actually flatters them, if anything. Yes, okay, they've got some fantastic individual quality, but they don't really seem to have a style. And, you know, from following Chris and Jack from Talk Norwich City on Twitter and a few other Norwich fans, that seems to be one of their biggest complaints. They don't really have a style. Okay, yes, they've picked up some good results this season, but there's no obvious pattern of play or, I don't think if you asked a Norwich fan what style of play Dean Smith plays, they'd actually know. And for me, that showed in the first half. They certainly didn't batter us. Yes, there was one or two fortunate moments, and obviously the great save from Stefan against Pukki. But yeah, I felt like 1-0 was probably a fair result going into half time. And I felt that actually the one criticism I had of us was that we probably weren't a little bit braver in the first half, actually, because I always felt that back line was there to be got at. People like Max Aarons has received, massively, um, well sort of received performances and plaudits because of those over the last few years. But since that sort of, I think it was Barcelona that he was rumoured to be going to. Since that move sort of fell through, I've watched him a couple of times and always thought that attacking wise, he is a threat certainly, but defensively, I always feel you can get at him. And as much as it sort of pains me to say it a little bit, I thought that Hanley and especially Ben Gibson also didn't look fantastic and like the Ben Gibson of old, I guess you could say. So yeah, that was my only criticism for the first half, that we didn't get at them more. And actually in the second half, we stepped it up a gear. We're more on the front foot, and we got our rewards after 64 minutes. An absolute piece of magic from Riley McGree. I mean, we're doing one podcast on 2 games, but if we really wanted to, we could have just done an hour segment on every angle, every shout, every single person's reaction when that went in, because, I mean, we'd had chances prior to the equaliser, but I don't even want to talk about them. I want to talk about Riley McGree's strike for as long as possible, Nathan.
Yeah, just unbelievable. Howson does well, wins a loose ball with his head, nods it into Marcus Force. Force flicks it on into a good area for McGree to run onto it, and you're thinking, just get it down and go. You're pretty much through on goal. But instead, he opts to just unveil a piece of magic and scissor kicks it from all of 25 yards, going away from goal into Angus Gunn's top corner. And I think the angle that best shows it is that angle from right behind it, where you can see it arrow into that top corner, and just the faces of the Norwich fans behind the goal of just sheer disbelief that McGree's launched one right into the top corner and wheeled away in celebration. I mean, as a fan that was at the game, I didn't see Riley McGree. That's getting clipped out. I didn't see Riley McGree run away in celebration because I was falling down about 5 rows with all the Boro fans around me, just grabbing hold of me and all celebrating with one another. But yeah, what a really pleasing goal to see going from the away end. It was fantastic. A great angle of it as well, watching it arrow into that top corner. And I'd have taken a point. I really would have done. I was happy enough to see the goal going at Carrow Road, as I mentioned earlier on in the horrific record for Middlesbrough there. Just to get a goal was nice. I'd have taken a point, but they turned it on once again, did Middlesbrough, and they got all 3 in the end.
Yeah, they did. And just before we talk about that winner, I just want to touch on that goal once more, and then we can go back to it perhaps, or just make a video dedicated to it, Nathan, because I mean, it literally was that good. But not only has Riley McGree scissor kicked one into the top corner from outside the box in the same week that he was called up to the Australia World Cup squad, he has also done it shushing the away fans. Well, okay, not at the same time, but following the strike, he shushes the away fans. I mean, that's iconic in itself. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned, and potentially, it may have put magic in Riley McGree's boots, is the mullet and tash combination that he's currently rocking. I mean, you couldn't get any more stereotypically Aussie if you tried. And to be honest, if he produces anything close to that again, I'd be very tempted to have a go myself at mirroring the mullet and tash combo.
It's a trademark. I think it needs to be trademarked by McGree. I mean, what a strike. I think he's tried it because Grant Hanley's coming across and he's probably going to try and barge McGree out the way. But yeah, to try it is one thing, but to execute it is another. And in his post-match interview, he did say, if I tried that 100 more times, I think we'd have been here for a long time trying to execute that once again. And yeah, it was a very, very special goal. And for those West Brom fans that are saying it's not goal of the day because of Brandon Thomas Asante's, then please just shush, because it was a piece of magic.
Yeah, any West Brom fans trying to argue the case need to grow up, to be honest. It's as simple as that, really. I mean, as we've touched on, the tash and the mullet alone should be considered for moment of the day, and the goal, I mean, it stands to reason, really, doesn't it? Yeah, it's in the words of Chris Reeve, it really did get me going. Magic. Just I'm running out of words to describe it, so we'll move on to the winner, and I'll probably just not even get my words out for this as well, because what a moment, Nathan. Obviously, you were in the away end. You're probably best place to describe it, and also to describe the scenes that followed. The big tree popping up in the 92nd minute and stealing 3 points away from Carrow Road.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that did catch my eye in the build-up to the goal was Chuba Akpom's piece of skill. I mean, unbelievable once again. A sort of drag back and flick, sets Jones away, takes Dimitri Giannoulis and Kenny McLean out the game with that flick, does Chuba. And Jones is driving forward. Chuba does extremely well to continue his run as well. Gets beyond Jones, goes up the line. Jones knocks Chuba in. Chuba squares it. And there he is, the big tree, flying in the 6-yard box, getting along that front post. And he's, I was going to say slotted. It's not a slot, it's a smash into the roof of the net. And I think every part of the celebrations needs analysing from a video point of view, because I didn't get to see any of it because I was, again, about 25 rows down from where I was in Carrow Road's away end. But Chuba in front of the Norwich fans after squaring the ball and jumping over an advertising board, doing a funny dance. Shithouse. Unbelievable. Rate it. Then Crooksy, big knee slide. Love that. Can't fault it. And lastly, the two young guns in the side, Ryan Giles and Hayden Hackney, both giving it the shush to the Norwich end. And that's exactly what I want from my players as a fan. Shout out to the Norwich fans that sit near to where the Talk Norwich City boys sit, who were giving it 1-0 early on in the game. I hope they enjoyed their trip back home, wherever they live in Norfolk, because it was probably I don't know why our players were shushing, if I'm honest, because it was probably the quietest ground I've been to in the country, and I know that's a problem for Norwich, as I do watch the Talk Norwich City Boys podcast, and they do talk about the atmosphere. But yeah, you can see why it is a problem, because it was shocking. All you could hear all game was the away fans, and it was just a stupendous away day. I don't know where the referee got 6 minutes from before Crooks put that one in Angus Gunn's net, but with Boro players dropping to the knees left, right and centre as they're walking back to kick off again, my heart was in my mouth, because I'm envisaging a 99th minute Onel Hernandez equaliser, and it did nearly happen as well. Late on in the game, Norwich throwing men forward, as they would do, chasing the game now, and the ball falls to Hernandez, who is his usual self, really, looks dangerous all the time he's on the ball, but nothing really seems to come from him, and he sidesteps a few Middlesbrough players and fires a shot into Zach Steffen's far corner, or at least it looks like it's going in that top corner. And yes, I was so glad to see it fly wide and hear the referee blow that full-time whistle, and to see the boys at the end of the game all getting a big huddle in the Boro box and celebrate that win was a really good moment as a Boro fan in that away day. It shows the togetherness of this team, and it shows that this team now looks like a far cry than what it was a month or so ago.
Yeah, it's been a pretty miraculous turnaround, to be honest. And yes, I guess some cynical people might say, well, it's 2 games, but it's not just 2 results. It's not just 2 wins. It's a manner of performance, especially in the last 2, but also even that second half against Bristol. You saw what this new look Middlesbrough team are capable of under Michael Carrick. You saw that Ryan Giles can still be such a threat, even from left back, not, playing in his previous role as a left wing back. He's still dangerous. You saw the improvement of Riley McGree, who's almost made sort of his own position in Michael Carrick's team, drifting in from that left flank and sort of operating as a number 10 / sort of free role left winger, if you want to call it that. And, Chuba Akpom as well, creator, goal scorer, technician, magician. You could honestly describe him in so many words. As you say, that piece of skill prior to our winner was scandalous, really, from him. And yeah, it's been a complete turnaround, hasn't it? And I don't think we can give Michael Carrick and Jonathan Woodgate enough credit to say, you have, I don't know if turned our fortunes around is a little bit too strong, given it is still early days. But I mean, you look at that table now, and my goodness, does an half look a lot healthier than what it did when they first arrived. I mean, 2 excellent away performances, as good as you're going to get in this division, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, the signs are there for a really, really positive second half of the season. It was so important for us to go into that World Cup break, I felt, on the back of a positive, and Blackpool sort of did give us that, but that Norwich result's obviously taken that level of positivity to a whole different level. And just again on the praise for Carrick and Woodgate, we saw Marcus Forss come back into the team and sort of make that number 9 position his own. We even saw Matthew Hoppy get a run out against Norwich and a few minutes as well against Blackpool. In all fairness, he played his part and then rewarded himself with a game of Uno with Yusuf on the way home. I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that. It was a fantastic day, I'm sure, even more so for those in attendance. But yeah, Nathan, just a word on this turnaround. It's been nothing short of amazing, really.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I think ahead of this 5-game burst, as Michael Carrick did call it, I think you'd have taken 10 points out of the 15 points available, and we've got that. 3 away wins in that time, and you can look at it and sort of think that we were unfortunate not to have a little bit more from this run as well. When you look at the Bristol City game, and you think we possibly should have put those out of sight, and also Preston conceded in the last minute. You think if you hold on for a minute or two longer and you come out there with a point. But just going back to Norwich for just a second, I thought the second half performance was fantastic. To go away to a side that are in the playoffs and are pretty much everyone's favourites to be up there in the upper echelons of the division, and sort of just put on a show in the second half and keep the ball away from them. Almost looked like Norwich were never going to get near the ball because Boro was so comfortable in possession, switching it from left to right. I think it was really, really good, and it puts a marker down that we can do that to some of the best sides in the division when we are playing to our best, really. And part of that does come down to the midfield too. Howson and Hackney, those two are just unbelievable, really. Johnny Howson, when he's at his absolute best for Middlesbrough play well, and I think that shows his importance to the side. But Hayden Hackney coming into this side as well, Leo's uncovered a gem there, bringing him into the side, and we've got a player there that just looks fearless every time he gets the ball, wants to go forward, gets the ball on the half turn every time, and looks to step into the midfield and move forward. And with Howson next to him, you have that experience to guide him through games if he needs to. But yeah, absolutely outstanding second half performance. And as you referred to earlier, in terms of a few sort of pundits and journalists getting things wrong this week with Middlesbrough's performance against Norwich. Sam Parkin from the EFL highlight show on ITV was relatively quick to tell me that he was apologetic about his take on Middlesbrough's performance away at Norwich. He did say that it was a smash and grab victory, which in my opinion, it was anything but, really. I thought that Middlesbrough in that second half were well worth the 3 points that they did get in the end, and fair play to Sam Parkin for coming across and apologising for that, because I think that shows that he's a fair pundit and understands that his assessment of the game was wrong in that case. But also just a quick mention for a family member that is only a young lad. He's only 10-year-old. My cousin Charlie, who He's from Norwich and has been brought up as a Boro fan. His dad moved down to Norwich a few years ago, and Charlie was at his first Boro game at the weekend and told us when Crooks did come on that he would get that winning goal, and he did just that. And he was very excited to meet a few of the players after the game as well. So I did head round to the players' entrance, speak to a few of the players. Riley McGree, fantastic guy to speak to. Wished him well in Qatar as well. And Michael Carrick as well, fantastic to have a conversation with him as he spoke to Charlie. I did tell him that it was Charlie's first game, and he told Charlie that he needs to come every week now because he must be our good luck charm. I thought that was fantastic from Carrick. But yeah, unbelievable 3 points, unbelievable away day. It's part of the reason why us fans go to games, for moments like that, to get those last minute winners, to have those celebratory scenes at the end of the game. And yes, the table looks rather nice now going into the break. Middlesbrough sat in 14th position at this moment in time, 4 points away from the top 6. Now that feels nice to say. However, I am going to caveat that with still only 4 points above the bottom 3 as well. But that shows how tight the division is, doesn't it? With Middlesbrough being in 14th and a handful of teams below us in the table, all clogged up on similar points totals. And it just goes to show, doesn't it, that a good week in this division can fire you right up that table.
Yeah, it certainly does. And just on Michael Carrick's words to Charlie, I hope you did obviously tell Carrick that, it would be quite a way for him to travel. I mean, by all means, he may well be our good luck charm, but I mean, that really would be a trek every Saturday and every Tuesday as well. So if Charlie and his dad are willing to do that, then by all means do so, because if we're going to get more results like that Norwich game, then I'm all for it. Yeah, and also nice to hear that the players were welcoming and willing to have a little bit of a chat. I think had that have been a few months ago, perhaps it probably would have been a complete different experience for you and Charlie, and I guess that just goes to show how things have turned around so quickly. Just before we wrap this up, Nathan, did you compliment Riley McGree on his tash?
Not on his tash. I didn't. I did compliment him on his goal, as you would expect. Yeah, absolute rocket, and yeah, a fantastic guy as well to speak to, as well as a few others. Darrell Lenahan, fantastic. Zach Steffen as well, great to talk to, and Tuba as well. Don't know what was going on with Tuba. He was on the bus 1 minute, then he was in the back of a Mercedes, and then he was outside again talking to different people. But yeah, we've got a really likable squad of players at this moment in time, and yeah, long may that continue. And shout out to Yusuf as well. He was stood near the players' entrance at full time, and it's the first time I've ever really been shouted and recognised from the podcast. But yeah, it did catch me by surprise, and it was good to have a conversation with Yusuf as well about the Borough, and also about how gutted we are that there's now a month break before the next game, which of course is Luton at home at the Riverside on the 10th of December, which it is a long way away at this moment in time, but we'll just enjoy the World Cup for now, or at least we hope we will, back in England, and of course back in Riley McGree to score some more scorches for Australia, as long as it's not against England.
Yeah, very true. And just obviously, before we do go, there's two things that I want to mention, actually, just conscious on time slightly. Nathan, you do have your own football to attend. And if you do score a goal like Riley McGree, I think you do have to then grow the tash. So just bear that in mind ahead of tonight. We did ask for questions. We will answer one of them now, and I've picked one specifically. I'm thinking, Nathan, during the World Cup break, we do another podcast where, sort of as a bit of a mid-season review, we get some more questions in and take a little bit more time. So a question just before we wrap the podcast up. Harry_UTB asked, is Akpom the greatest player not to have Ballon d'Or? And I can confirm that, yes, he is. And that's all that needs to be said. One last thing, and I promise it is the last thing before we go. How did Zach Steffen not get in the USA squad?
I'm lost for words, really. I couldn't believe it. And most of all, I'm gutted for Zach Steffen as well, because I felt that in recent weeks he's been outstanding for Middlesbrough. A bit nervy at times, especially with one moment against Norwich. But yeah, I look at the goalkeepers that are in that squad for the USA, and I just think there's no one there that stands out over Zach Steffen. Luton fans will point in the direction of Ethan Hovarth, and in return, I'll point in the direction of him passing the ball to Onel Hernandez for his goal at Nottingham Forest last season. So, yeah, it's massively unfortunate for Zach. But I suppose as an England fan, I'm glad that we won't be facing him at the World Cup.
Yeah, we'll do Zach Steffen a favour and hopefully put 5 or 6 past USA and get somewhat revenge from that really questionable call from the USA manager. Right, Nathan, that is just done. A really positive podcast, and God, I've missed these 2 wins in a week podcasts. It feels like, I mean, probably over a year since we've done one of those, and yeah, it's always enjoyable, isn't it? Obviously, as I say, in terms of the next couple of weeks, it is the World Cup, so we won't be doing our weekly podcasts. We may try and fit something in between that, a bit of a mid-season or Q&A or something like that, but we'll keep you updated via the Twitter account. And I think all that's left to be said is, if you have enjoyed, like and subscribe, give us a kind review on audio platforms that you may be listening on. And from me and Nathan, thank you ever so much for the support in the first half of the season. And we will hopefully be back soon. Come on, England, I guess.
Come on, England.
Thanks again, guys. We'll see you again soon.